On Christmas morning, while everyone was unwrapping gifts, my husband handed me divorce papers, and his whole family started cheering. But they didn't know I had my own surprise for them. Please stay with me through this. And if you're listening, don't forget to support our channel by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Because trust me, this story is one I never thought I'd live through. Christmas morning wasn't supposed to feel like walking into a firing squad. I had spent hours wrapping gifts, adjusting pine-scented candles around the Reynolds' massive living room, and reminding myself to breathe through the judgment I knew was coming the moment I stepped inside. They always had a way of looking at me like I snuck in through the service door instead of being married into their pristine world. But that morning, I held myself with quiet dignity, like a woman holding something bigger than anyone in that room could see. Daniel handed out presents with his smug little grin, narrating jokes that only his family laughed at. His mother sat on the edge of the sofa like a judge waiting to slam a gavel. His siblings whispered and smirked, and I knew they were waiting for something. Turns out, they were waiting for this. While torn wrapping paper filled the floor and laughter echoed under twinkling lights, he leaned toward me, handed me a crisp white envelope, and whispered like he was giving me jewelry. I opened it, expecting, maybe a letter, a card, something that resembled affection. Instead, I saw those cold-typed words, petition for dissolution of marriage. My breath froze. The room fell silent for half a second until his sister squealed. Finally! And someone actually clapped. Yes, they clapped while my marriage was dropped into my lap like an eviction notice from the life I thought I had. Daniel's smirk didn't falter. He even lifted his glass. To new beginnings, he said. And his mother added, "You'll thank us someday." They thought I would crumble right there, that the shock would shatter me in front of them like a cheap ornament dropped on cold marble. But I didn't break. Not a tear. Not a question. Not a single plea. I just breathed, steady and controlled, and looked him dead in the eyes like I was memorizing the last moment I'd ever see him as someone who mattered. Because while they thought they had won, they had no idea I had already signed my own papers. Mine came with evidence, leverage, and a future they couldn't touch. Still, before I tell you how everything turned around, I need to take you back to a time when the sight of Daniel didn't make my stomach twist. When I truly believed love could survive status, pride, and the weight of other people's expectations. He wasn't always the villain of my story. Once, he was the charming stranger who pulled over on the side of a North Carolina road to help a girl with a flat tire and a stubborn heart. He smiled like the sun, and I swear in that moment I believed I was safe. I had no idea the same man would one day set fire to my life and expect me to burn quietly. I still remember that first afternoon like it's etched into my skin. My old sedan coughed its last breath on a quiet road outside Raleigh, and I was standing there with my hair in a messy bun, scrubs wrinkled after a long shift, trying to convince the engine to resurrect itself out of sheer will. Then a sleek black car pulled beside me, and the window rolled down. Daniel leaned out, sunglasses, easy grin, polished confidence dripping from every word as he asked if I needed help. I'd like to say I hesitated, played it cool, but I didn't. Something about his voice, calm and steady, made me exhale for the first time that day. He popped my hood like he'd done it 100 times, teased me about driving a loyal but tired piece of history, and within minutes had me on the road again. Before he stepped back into his car, he flashed that charming half-smile and asked if I'd like dinner sometime. I didn't even pretend to think about it. I said yes before my brain caught up to my mouth. Sometimes your heart jumps before logic can catch it. Sometimes that jump costs you. Our first date felt like stepping into a movie. Warm lights, music humming low, his hand brushing mine with that electrifying hesitation of two people falling without admitting it yet. He listened when I talked about nursing school, about growing up in a small house with secondhand furniture and parents who taught me kindness over polish. He said it was beautiful, the way I cared so much about people. And I believed him. Before long, we were spending weekends by lakes, sharing sandwiches in the shade of trees, laughing until my ribs hurt. He took me on long drives through country roads, fingers intertwined over the console, windows down, future glowing in every look he gave me. He whispered plans, a house with a porch swing, little feet running through hallways, mornings filled with coffee and routines we'd build together. I thought I'd found the person I could trust with every version of myself, even the scared parts. But love can be blinding in the softest ways. It hides cracks by shining brighter over them. The first flicker of unease came when he introduced me to his family. The moment his mother's eyes skimmed over my thrift store shoes and simple dress, I felt something cold travel up my spine. She smiled, polite on the surface, but there was a silent question behind her teeth. What makes you worthy of him? His siblings followed her lead, polite words coated with sugar, glances dipped in quiet judgment. I brushed it off. I told myself they'd come around. I convinced myself that their tight smiles weren't warnings, but misunderstandings. Daniel squeezed my hand that night and said I was perfect. And I clung to that more than I should have. Because when you want something to last, you learn to swallow discomfort and call it patience. Looking back, that was my first mistake, believing goodness alone would protect me. Love can warm you, but if you're not careful, it can also lull you into ignoring the chill creeping in through the cracks. The wedding glow faded faster than I ever imagined. No big explosion, no obvious shift, just a subtle cooling, like someone slowly lowering the warmth in a room until you realize you're shivering. We moved into a townhouse he picked, sleek and polished, all stainless steel and cold marble. I tried to nest, tried to plant softness in corners, throw blankets, flowers, framed photos, but it always felt like I was visiting his life instead of building ours. At first, he kissed my forehead before leaving for the office. He asked about my shifts, joked about my habit of labeling leftovers, left notes sometimes. Then the notes disappeared. Then the jokes stopped. Then he started checking emails while I talked, nodding without listening. Soon, I was spending evenings alone with leftovers he didn't touch because he was busy closing deals. Work became his religion, the office his sanctuary. He'd stumble in tired, loosen his tie, and collapse on the couch scrolling through messages the moment he got home. I'd sit beside him, craving eye contact, conversation, anything that made us feel like us again. Instead, I got silence broken only by sighs and the vibration of constant notifications. Every attempt to reach him felt like tapping on a wall hoping it would answer back. His mother took notice of the distance, not to comfort me, but to twist the knife. Margaret had a talent for disguising cruelty as etiquette. She'd lean in close at family gatherings, voice low and sugary, telling me how fortunate I was. "My son is exceptional," she'd murmur, as if it were a prayer. Women would line up for a man like him. I smiled, bit my tongue, swallowed the sting, tried to tell myself she didn't mean harm. But every syllable carried the weight of superiority, like she was reminding me I should bow just for being allowed near their orbit. Those dinners were battles dressed as celebrations. I'd walk through their grand doorway and immediately feel eyes on me, measuring, evaluating, waiting for me to trip. I laughed at jokes I didn't find funny, thanked Margaret for comments that barely masked judgment, and kept my posture straight even when I felt like disappearing. I told myself compromise was part of love. That families took time. That discomfort didn't mean defeat. But the worst cuts didn't come from her. They came from him. Any disagreement, any misunderstanding, any tiny moment where I stood my ground, he retreated to their side like a soldier remembering where his loyalty truly belonged. "They just care," he'd say. Or, "You're reading too much into things." When I tried to express how isolated I felt, he shrugged it off, told me I was sensitive. Sensitive. That word wrapped around my throat like a rope. So I put on strength like armor in daylight and dissolved quietly when no one was watching. I reassured myself it was a temporary storm. Marriage had seasons, right? Hard ones, gentle ones. I convinced myself that holding on was noble, that endurance meant love. I whispered excuses at night just to silence the ache. I believed patience would lead us back to warmth. I held hope like a fragile candle in a drafty room, shielding it with trembling hands while everything around me chilled. I didn't realize yet, some flames die not because you stop feeding them, but because someone else keeps blowing them out. When my promotion came, I thought it might be the spark that brought warmth back into our home. Becoming a nurse supervisor wasn't handed to me. I earned it through grit, double shifts, aching feet, and a heart that refused to turn cold no matter how heavy the days got. I walked through our front door that evening with pride humming through my veins, ready to share the news with the man who once cheered for every little win I had. He barely looked up from his laptop. A flat "that's nice" landed like a stone. No smile, no hug, no spark in his eyes. Just a tight jaw and fingers clicking across the keyboard, as if my joy was an interruption. At first, I blamed exhaustion. Long week, high-pressure deadlines. I excused everything because that's what you do when you're hoping something still lives beneath the surface. But when my new schedule brought more responsibility and confidence, the shift in him sharpened. He started tossing little darts, disguised as jokes. Must be nice to play boss, with a smirk. Or, let's not forget who keeps the lights on, as if my work was suddenly a hobby. His words bruised in ways I never expected. Pride twisted into resentment in his voice. Instead of admiration, I saw something bitter flicker in his eyes. My success made him shrink, or maybe it made him angry he no longer felt above me. Each snide comment chipped at me. He'd lean in casually while I cooked, whispering, "Careful, you're getting a little too confident." Arguments started like whispers and grew into storms. He'd accuse me of changing, claim I stopped being soft with him, insist that ambition made me less graceful, less womanly. More than once he looked at me and said, "Men don't like women who try to be in charge," as if wanting respect made me wrong. As if my growth was a threat, not a celebration. On nights I came home exhausted, hoping for comfort, he'd tilt his head and say something like, "Don't get too full of yourself." And when I snapped back, when I dared defend my own achievements, he'd act wounded, call me emotional, accuse me of trying to dominate everything. Somehow every conversation twisted until I felt like I was apologizing for breathing too loud. Manipulation doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers that you're the problem while smiling sweetly enough to make you doubt your own reflection. Still, I tried. I sat with him at the dining table, asked how to make us stronger, suggested counseling, planned date nights he never showed up for. I told myself love needed effort, even when I was the only one lifting. I clung to vows, to hope, to the idea that seasons shift again if you're patient. But patience doesn't fix a heart that's already closed its doors. Nights stretched cold and quiet. He started coming home later, claiming urgent meetings, staying out until the moon hung tired in the sky. He'd slip into bed without touching me, smell like expensive cologne that wasn't mine, turn away before I could speak. The space between us became a canyon, filled with all the things we no longer said, all the affection he no longer offered. And every time he shut the bedroom light, leaving me staring at the ceiling in the dark, I felt the truth pressing into my ribs like a whisper I wasn't ready to face. Love doesn't freeze without reason. Someone has to stop tending the fire. It started with a scent. Not mine, softer, floral, expensive, the kind that lingers and tells on a person long after the door closes. He walked in past midnight, shirt wrinkled, hair messy in a way that didn't look like stress but like someone's fingers had been there. He brushed past me with a muttered greeting, heading straight to the shower without meeting my eyes. Something in my chest tightened, not shock, not even hurt yet, more like a quiet alarm switching on, steady and cold. After that night, he carried his phone like it was oxygen. Always face down, always locked. He changed passwords he never used to hide. He laughed under his breath at messages, then cleared them before setting the phone aside. If I walked into a room unexpectedly, he'd snap the screen shut like a teenager hiding forbidden texts. When I asked simple questions, he gave answers with too many words or not enough, both forms of suspicion in disguise. I didn't accuse. I didn't raise my voice or crumble or demand anything. Instead, a stillness came over me, the kind nurses learn in emergency rooms. Observe first, act only when absolutely certain. I watched him, quiet as a heartbeat you only notice when the room goes silent. He'd say he was stuck in meetings, yet his tie would be loosened like someone already tugged it free. Dinner reservations on his card on nights, he claimed to be working late. A smear of lipstick once, faint but unmistakable. He brushed it off as a coworker's hug, a sloppy excuse delivered too quickly. My mind started cataloging. Times he left, places he claimed to be, receipts folded carelessly in his pants pocket. I memorized details the way I memorize patient charts, subtle patterns, repeating symptoms, clues hidden in small behaviors. If emotional betrayal is a sickness, I could diagnose it before it spoke its name aloud. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I smiled when he walked in. I kissed his cheek. And when he fell asleep, I sat on the edge of our bed with the calm of someone laying out surgical tools, precise, detached. I told myself, find truth, not drama. Then came the night that ripped away denial. He left his iPad on the counter, careless, confident, believing I trusted him too much to ever look. And maybe that was the part that hurt most, how certain he was I would stay blind. A soft chime lit the screen. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. The notification preview glowed like a blade in the dark. Can't wait to spend Christmas together, baby red heart. The name below it made my stomach drop and harden in the same second. Vanessa, a name I'd heard him mention casually, the talented coworker, the new project lead, the woman he swore was just really dedicated. Funny how dedication smells like perfume and leaves lipstick on collars. My breath didn't hitch. My hands didn't tremble. Instead, something steady settled over me, a strange kind of acceptance, cold and razor-sharp. I walked to the sink, splashed my face, and stared at myself in the mirror. My reflection didn't look broken. It looked awake. I didn't confront him. Not yet. Fury feels good for a moment, but strategy lasts. And I wasn't going to give him a single tear until tears meant nothing anymore. He thought he'd fooled me. He thought I'd crumble quietly like a woman grateful for scraps of affection. But I spent my life caring for people in chaos, and now I had proof of my own. Evidence. Motive. Truth, sitting right there in a heart emoji. I wiped a drop of water from my chin, lifted my head, and whispered to my reflection, steady and sure. I see you now. I didn't rush. Anger makes people sloppy, and I refused to give him the satisfaction of catching me stumbling. I needed certainty, not just suspicion or screenshots from a careless moment. So I met quietly with someone who made truth their business. A private investigator, gray-haired, calm, the kind of man who'd seen enough betrayal to treat mine like routine. He didn't ask why. He saw the reason in my eyes. Days passed slowly, each one another act in a play where I pretended everything was normal. I cooked, I smiled. I kissed his cheek when he walked in smelling like someone else. Inside, though, something settled into steel. When the PI called, I sat in my car in the hospital parking lot, hands gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles whitened. His voice was steady. You were right. The folder he handed me later felt heavier than paper should. Photos of him entering hotels with her hand looped around his arm. Copies of bookings under an alias he thought was clever. Audio clips, low whispers that weren't meant for anyone but her. They laughed. They made plans. They used words he once used for me. I didn't breathe. I just stared. And then, without a sound, tears slid down, the kind that burn because they come from a place deeper than sadness. I cried once, there, alone in my car, hands shaking, forehead pressed to the steering wheel as the truth finally stopped pretending to be anything else. No scene, no shouting. Just grief collapsing quietly, the way earthquakes sometimes do underground. When the tears dried, something inside me reset. That night, I looked at myself under the harsh bathroom light. No mascara streaks, no trembling lip, just a woman staring at the version of herself who had begged for scraps of affection. I whispered one word, firm and final. Enough. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just a promise. The next morning, I didn't crumble. I moved like someone preparing for surgery, calm, focused, deliberate. I scheduled an appointment with a lawyer, someone with sharp eyes and sharper instincts. We went through everything: accounts, investments, property, patterns of emotional erosion. Every insult he hid behind a smirk. Every time he made me doubt my worth. Every lonely night in a marriage bed that felt like a stranger's couch. She nodded, took notes, was furious on my behalf in the way powerful women are when they see another woman cornered. We'll build this right, she said. We'll do it quietly. Quiet was my strength now. And then came the blow I didn't expect but somehow always sensed. Confirmation that his family had known. Had helped. Had painted me jealous, dramatic, ungrateful. They didn't just step aside. They opened the door for her, excused him, dismissed me. Every "she's lucky to have you" from his mother suddenly rewrote itself as mockery. They hadn't just ignored my pain. They fed it to him like approval. I didn't scream. Rage didn't need volume anymore. I packed my softness away like silk kept safe in a drawer and sharpened my resolve like a blade. This wouldn't be a fight in the living room with tears and thrown glasses. This would be precision. Timing. Evidence. Strategy. I wasn't there to break him. I was there to free myself with dignity as my armor. He thought silence meant weakness. But sometimes silence is the sound of a woman loading every truth she needs and waiting for the perfect moment to pull the trigger. I signed the petition in secret weeks before the holiday, then set the papers aside like evidence in a quiet drawer. I didn't rush to hand them over. Instead, I controlled the clock. There is power in timing when the goal is not punishment, but escape with dignity. I began by reshuffling my finances, moving my savings away from accounts he could access into one under a different name. It felt unromantic but necessary, like stitching a wound closed so it would stop bleeding. Every step I took was deliberate. I canceled joint credit cards, updated passwords, and met with a bank officer who understood discretion. I changed beneficiaries where it mattered and made sure our names were separated on anything that could be disputed. I documented transfers, kept paper trails, and printed confirmations. There was a hollow satisfaction in watching the balance settle where I wanted it, steady and unreachable. Proof became my language. I ordered duplicates of messages, saved audio files, and printed images the investigator had collected. I copied hotel bookings and cross-referenced dates with the photographs. Each page I placed in a folder felt like another lock clicking into place. When emotions cloud judgment, facts remain clear. So I built a small archive, neat stacks of undeniable truth that would not bend to tales or excuses. I prepared an ordinary morning scene that would hide my storm. I rehearsed being convivial at family gatherings, smiling while they praised Daniel, nodding while conversations danced around my absence. I would let them believe I was oblivious, that their triumph was absolute. Acting like everything was fine had its uses. It lowered guards and sharpened my advantage. If he expected drama, he would get nothing. If he expected tears, he would find composure. My calm would be a blade. One quiet afternoon, I packed a simple box with intention. Inside I placed printed evidence, the investigator's report in a sealed sleeve, a thumb drive with files copied and labeled. I wrapped it in festive paper that mocked the irony of the moment. On top I tucked a small card with 3 words written in black ink. It was meant to be unassuming until opened. I rehearsed the confrontation in my head a dozen times, not the shouting match he might prefer, but the slow unspooling of truth. I pictured handing the box across the mahogany table, watching color drain from faces that had celebrated my supposed downfall. I imagined the silence after the first page was read, the way smug smiles would falter when faced with hard evidence. The goal was not to humiliate without cause, but to reveal enough that the consequences were inevitable. Everything I arranged was practical and precise. I met with an attorney who helped organize records and advised on the best sequence for serving documents and presenting proof. We discussed strategy quietly. She reminded me that composure is often the most devastating weapon. I wanted to leave without begging, without pleading, with dignity intact and safety secured. I would not be the one crumbling in front of them. I would not hand over my life to chaos. If he chose games, I chose the rules. If he expected me to fold, I would stand and turn the board so he could see he had lost. When the day came, I would move like someone experienced in endings. Quietly, efficiently, and with a peace that belongs only to people who choose themselves over betrayal and never look back. The mansion glitters with garlands and polished marble, laughter rising like champagne bubbles. Silk-dressed relatives clink glasses, cameras out, everyone pretending warmth under chandeliers bought to impress. A fire crackles, carols float, and sugary holiday perfection coats everything like icing thick enough to choke on. I sit on a velvet armchair, posture straight, smile practiced, heartbeat steady. I am a guest in a house that never welcomed me, only tolerated me like a seasonal decoration they planned to pack away once I outlived my purpose. Daniel prowls around, basking in attention, his arm brushing mine only when eyes are on us. His mother beams at him as if he's a prince returning from conquest. His father nods, satisfied. Their smugness swirls through the room like expensive perfume. They love an audience, especially for cruelty. "Gift time," his sister announces, bouncing with performative excitement. Wrapping paper flies. Watches. A designer bag. Jewelry. Applause after every reveal. My turn approaches. Whispers trail behind me, sharp as needles. I keep breathing. Calm, steady. I already know what's coming. Daniel clears his throat dramatically. "Claire," he says, voice dripping with fake sorrow. "This year is special." Eyes turn. The room hushes. He slides an envelope into my hands like a gracious executioner offering a final kindness. His smirk twitches, dying to break free. I open it slowly. Legal pages glare up, cold and final. Gasps. Giggles. Applause erupts like they're watching a finale of their favorite show. His mother claps first, delighted. "Finally, Daniel's free," she crows. "We thought he'd be stuck forever." Someone whistles. Someone else mutters, "About time." A cousin raises a glass. "Cheers to peace." They laugh as if my life is a punchline. I blink once, twice, not because I'm shocked, but because I refuse to blink tears. My hands tremble only from restraint. Composure is a fight, but I win. I lift my gaze to Daniel. His chest is puffed, chin raised, expression triumphant. He thinks this is victory. He thinks he stole my dignity today. My voice is soft, almost gentle. "That's interesting," I say. The laughter falters. "Because I got you something too." Confusion sweeps across the room like a draft. I reach under my seat and retrieve a small black box tied with an understated ribbon. No theatrics, just precision. I pass it to him, fingers steady. He chuckles, trying to regain momentum. A gift, he sneers. You didn't need to. Open it, I murmur. Paper tears. Lid lifts. Silence detonates. Inside rests a neatly signed set of documents. My own petition, stamped, dated before his. On top, photographs, records, undeniable truth folded with surgical order. And the USB drive gleams, small, silver, merciless. His smug face collapses first. Color drains. Breath catches. A murmur ripples through the room. Phones lower. Champagne flutes still midair. His mother stares, jaw falling open like a cracked porcelain doll. His sister chokes on a gasp. His father's knuckles whiten around his glass. Daniel whispers, hoarse, "What is this?" I lean forward slightly, tone calm enough to cut glass. Evidence. An initiative. A single heartbeat stretches forever. No one cheers now. No one laughs. The festive playlist keeps playing somewhere behind us, painfully cheerful. A clock ticks. A snow-dusted wreath hangs lopsided, suddenly pathetic. This wasn't your stage, I add quietly. It was mine. Silence thickens. Pride rises, not loud, not gloating. Just steady like new breath after drowning. Their perfect holiday shatters, heavy and immediate. I sit back, lift my chin, and let them watch everything they thought they controlled slip through their fingers like frost melting in open palms. A heavy silence hangs in the room, brittle enough to crack like thin ice. My documents still sit open in Daniel's shaking hands, damning him more loudly than any outburst ever could. His jaw twitches, and he forces a strained chuckle, desperate to claw back control. "Everyone relax," he mutters. She's confused. This is being blown out of proportion. No one buys it. His voice trembles, his eyes dart. Confidence has fled him, replaced by rising panic. I simply watch him, steady as marble. The power has flipped, and he can feel it. Margaret steps forward, face flushed with humiliation, pearl necklace trembling against her throat. "Daniel," she hisses, "what did you do?" He opens his mouth, closes it, opens it again. No excuses come out, only pathetic sputtering. His sister covers her face like she can hide from the truth staining the air. His brother mutters under his breath, shaking his head. "This is your mess," Margaret snaps, voice sharp enough to slice skin. "You brought shame into this family." Ah, not grief. Not disappointment over broken vows. Just anger that their curated perfection has been ruined. Their reputation dented. Their golden boy exposed as rotten metal. I don't need to raise my voice. I simply stand, smoothing my dress, spine straight. Confidence wraps around me like armor. "There's no confusion," I say softly. While he was busy blaming me for every flaw he refused to face, I was quietly documenting the truth. Daniel's face crumples. "Claire, we can talk about this." "We already had years to talk," I reply evenly. "You chose lies. You chose betrayal. Now you can live with the consequences." Gasps echo. Someone whispers my name like they've just realized I'm not a meek ornament in his world, but a storm they underestimated. Margaret reaches for me, desperation tinged in her voice. "You can't possibly think walking away makes you righteous." My eyes meet hers, unwavering. "I don't need your approval. I stood by your son when no one else would. And while you mocked me, I stayed faithful. That's something none of you can claim." A hush falls again. I breathe deeply, not from nerves but liberation. "I may not have fit into your idea of status," I continue, calm and low, "but I had integrity. And that's worth more than any last name in this room." No one moves. No one speaks. I pick up my purse, tuck a loose strand of hair behind my ear, and take one final look at the room that once treated me like an outsider. "Enjoy your holiday," I whisper. "I'll enjoy my life." Then I turn, heels tapping against the marble as I walk away. No tears. No begging. Just quiet strength. Their Christmas tree sparkles behind me, but there is no warmth left in that house, only exposed hypocrisy. Weeks later, the courtroom feels colder, but justice burns bright. Lawyers speak, papers exchange hands, and truth shines relentlessly. His infidelity isn't speculation. It's recorded, documented, undeniable. He avoids my eyes the entire time. The judge's voice is steady as she renders judgment. Property division favors me. Financial security rests in my hands. The house, my sanctuary, remains mine. He gets what he earned, consequences. When it's over, I walk out under a pale winter sun, breath rising in crisp clouds, each step light, unburdened. I didn't scream. I didn't crumble. I chose dignity over despair. And now, finally, my future belongs to me, not to a man who underestimated me, nor to a family who never valued me. I free myself, not just legally, but entirely. And this time, the only applause I need comes from within. Spring sunlight spills across my new porch, soft and warm, nothing like the cold marble halls I walked away from. Months have passed, and in those months I built a life that feels like breathing fresh air after years inside a sealed house. My tiny craftsman home smells like fresh paint and lavender. There's a cozy reading nook by the window, a garden forming in the yard, and a cheerful little rescue dog curled at my feet, snoring like he's dreaming of a world where hurt never existed. I take weekend road trips just to chase horizons. I ate alone at seaside cafes, journaled on quiet mountain trails, and learned how it feels to enjoy my own company without apologies. Silence isn't empty anymore. It's gentle, full healing. Daniel reached out again and again, emails, calls from unknown numbers, even letters. Long messages dripping with regret. Words about mistakes, weakness, missing me. He wanted forgiveness. He wanted access to the peace he watched me walk into without him. I never replied. Some doors are better sealed forever. He chose deceit. I chose distance. I heard through colleagues what happened next. Workplace whispers turning into headlines in their industry. Vanessa eventually exposed him too, not out of spite for me, but because users eventually betray everyone, even the people they replace you with. His charm couldn't save him when truth finally landed. His downfall didn't make me celebrate. It only reminded me why I left. Healing came not from watching him fall, but from watching myself rise. Evenings now are slow, tea in hand, dog beside me, soft jazz humming. I look in the mirror and recognize the woman there again. She's wiser, steadier, kinder to herself. She no longer flinches at shadows of old wounds. She learned that peace is earned, not given, and that walking away can be louder than shouting. Sometimes I stand by my doorway at dusk, tiny fairy lights glowing around the porch, and breathe in quiet triumph. No bitterness. No fear. Just stillness and strength settling where heartbreak once lived. Sometimes revenge isn't destruction. Sometimes it's choosing not to look back while the flames they created finally reach them. It's starting over, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. That Christmas, I lost a husband but found myself again. And that, my friends, was the real gift. Do you think I did the right thing by walking away and choosing peace? Or should I have given them another chance? I'd really love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed following my journey, don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another story. Your support means everything to me.